Okay, today we continue with the portrait of Saul. We saw how impulsive he was, a little bit insecure probably, and just lacking wisdom all around. We also see he had humility. He wasn't coveting the kingship. He was a little bit reluctant to even take it, but we see that he quickly rose to the occasion, leading Israel to its first victory under his kingship. One of the things that tanked his kingship is his insecurity and the fear of men. We can see in 1 Samuel 15 when he was asked, he said, I was afraid of the men, and so I gave in to them. And even when you fast forward to what made him begin to be very insecure about David being around, is after David had come back from battle and the women were singing that Paul rout 1,000 and David rout 10,000 or something like that. So he had a deep-seated insecurity which he hadn't dealt with, which made him very paranoid. And this fear of men and a need for approval became a recurring theme in Saul's reign. And when we contrast that to David, we see the difference that David had only fear for God and he continuously sought the Lord in all his conquests, every battle he undertook. It's as if men didn't feature as much as what has God said. So in life, I think you can either have the fear of man, or guide all your decisions, or you can have the fear of God, guide all your decisions. So let's search our hearts and see what is driving us. People pleasing is such a terrible habit to fall into. It's a vice, actually, because I think the Bible says somewhere that you cannot fear man and fear God. Like you cannot, no, it doesn't say that. It says you cannot please man. You cannot fear man and please God. Let me find the verse. I'm glad I looked it up because I was saying my own things. The verse actually is Galatians 1:10, and it says, For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. And that really is the sentiment. You cannot please both man and God at the same time. Why? Because majority of the time, man and God are diametrically opposed. Remember, man is still under the curse of sin unless they've come unto Christ and they're submitted themselves to the transformation of their spirit. Unfortunately, most come to Christ and then they're not even aware that there's a journey involved, that there's a transformation involved, there's a sanctification. It's surprising how few churches teach this. And I think for some of us that we've gotten this revelation, it's really just by God's grace. All right, getting back to Saul. Because of Saul's repeated disobedience, that led to God rejecting his kingship. As we read in 1 Samuel 15 again, Samuel ends up saying to Saul, you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you as king over Israel. While this rejection was not immediate, God's judgment is, it is immediate sometimes, but sometimes, more often than not, it's not. It did unfold over time. We could see Saul lose favor with God, eventually lost favor with his army, eventually lost favor with literally everyone, until such a time that his kingdom became untenable, and then he was killed at battle. It unfolded over time as he spiraled into paranoia, jealousy, and irrational behavior, particularly towards David, who was poised to be the next king, and Saul was sort of aware of this. Almost every action he undertook alienated him both from God and from the people. His destructive jealousy towards David caused him to seek to kill him. He was infuriated even just by his presence. He has a tragic legacy, and it was a very promising start, but what a tragic ending to such a promising start. He began his reign with humility, with divine appointment, divine favor, and military success. However, his lack of spiritual depth, impatience, and fear of man led to his downfall. So Saul's story serves as a cautionary tale. It serves as a warning about the dangers of relying on human strength and wisdom instead of trusting and obeying God. His inability to fully submit to God's authority and his impulsive decisions ultimately led to his rejection as king. Despite his failures, God used his reign to prepare for a king that was really after his own heart, and that's King David, which highlights God's ability to work through flawed humanity, flawed leaders, flawed people to still bring about his will and his purpose. To me, these are great miracles that God is able to circumvent the evil we cause, or the delays we cause, or the sin we cause, because we can exercise our free will, and He's still able to incorporate that to still bring His will about, like full circle moments. So when we summarize Saul's character, we can see that he had strengths which included humility. He was initially very reluctant to take power. Another strength we see is his demonstrated early leadership and military success. And then we also see that he commanded respect and obedience from the people, at least initially he did. But then when we look at his weaknesses, we find that he's impulsive and impatient, often acting without seeking the Lord or waiting for him. We also find that he was insecure and fearful of losing currying favor with men, which led to him making poor decisions because he was always seeking the approval of man instead of seeking to please God, which can only lead us to conclude that he was spiritually shallow, prioritizing outside appearance over true obedience to God because God searches the heart. So we can say that his impulsiveness and lack of wisdom became his undoing, despite his initial humility and strong start. His story is a sobering reminder of the importance of obedience, trust in God, and reliance on divine wisdom in leadership. And that's the portrait of King Saul. Okay, bye. Hello, precious.
Muka,
Yes, ma'am.
what can I do with this one right here?
Alright. Is that for you?
No, that's for Terry.
You need mine?
No, I'm filling
For
her.
her?
Yeah.
She's not downstairs?
No, she is downstairs.
Well, she has one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They all have one, all of them.
I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't know if that was a.
Yes, they do.
So wait.
I know, I don't understand it.
So wait, hold on.
Yeah, every single one.
Wait, hold on. So they have that.
All of them? Ja, ik snap het ook niet, maar die hebben dat gekregen zodra dat ze hier binnengekomen waren. Direct.
Oké.
Ja, ik snap het ook niet, schatje.